And welcome back, everyone, to the Steve Finnegan Show. I have Jay on the line with me. Jay, welcome to this sunny Thursday. Still a little cold out there. How are you doing?
Well, that's right. I'm doing great. It's nice to see almost barely any snow left in my front yard. So I'm glad to have that part of the winter behind us, hopefully for at least a little while.
Me too, my friend. But before you and I get started, there's a couple housekeeping things I have to do. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to post this on Facebook and my Twitter account so you guys and gals can all see this. So you'll see where I put Arkansas Early Voting 2026. And the first line of the search assistant says, early voting in Arkansas for the 2026 elections will start on February 17th and end on March 2nd. Polls are open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then the very same thing underneath says early voting starts on February 16th. So I guess maybe this is where some of the confusion might be coming from. So what I did, I went to the Secretary of State's website to see what the Secretary of State had to say about it. And the Secretary of State's website says February 16th is when early voting starts. And I don't know about you, Jay, but I think I'd probably go with the Secretary of State.
Yeah, it's great you're having him on. I mean, you can get it direct from the source here.
I plan on asking him. What a perfect day to have the Secretary come on when we have these dilemmas.
There you go.
Now, I have to put you on the spot one more time. Now, I don't know if you were listening before you got a chance to call in, but I threw this out there to the audience. Are you going to watch the Super Bowl halftime show with Bad Bunny, especially given his profane things he said at the Grammys and then the things about ICE and everything else? And so far, 100% of the people said, with one exception, said they would not be watching the Super Bowl halftime show, that they're going to go over and watch it, the Turning Point USA's with Kid Rock, the alternative Super Bowl show. Even had one listener call in and say, if you don't have cable or satellite, here's how you watch it. Kid Rock over the airwaves, and gave us the two stations it's going to be on over the airways. So are you watching Super Bowl halftime show?
Well, I had not considered this until I listened today. So you are putting me on the spot here, because I'll say I hadn't made my plans yet. But I wasn't actually sure that was who was performing, to be honest with you. So, no, I'm not a big Super Bowl halftime show guy, period. So I don't expect to be watching this one. My parents raised me on Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings, and so I'm not too up on Bad Bunny's music. I don't intend to watch.
I didn't know about Bad Bunny or who he was until Roger Goodell announced him as the halftime show. And I have to say, this guy is an absolute disaster. I mean, my first recollections of NFL commissioners were Pete Rozelle and then Paul Tagliabue. And under those two gentlemen, there was none of this nonsense. And then I saw that Goodell makes $200 million a year, which was more than Tom Brady was making in a year. And I was thinking to myself, Tom Brady's a whole lot more valuable to the NFL, or was a whole lot more valuable than Roger Goodell ever hoped to be.
Yeah, and I think you're right that people, at least I can speak for myself. I tune into sports because I like to watch a football game, and I don't want to be lectured to. I don't want to have politics, infiltrating sports and everybody trying to send a message there. I don't think it's the right place for it. So hopefully we at least have a good game and maybe some good commercials, if nothing else.
Yes. And that's it. But, there are a bunch that have texted in that said they are not watching the Super Bowl again this year because of one as far as to say, you put somebody on who hates our country. Why would I want to even support anything to do with that? And I had to agree with what the listener said and his or her logic in this. But anyway, you and I, let's get to some of the topics here. I found this interesting, Jay. They have revised up, and I appreciated you sending me the revised figures that the state of Arkansas's surplus of taxes has been revised up now to $334 million.
That's right. And as you know, this is something we track at Opportunity Arkansas to see, one, how the state's doing and where tax collections are trending. So this was a bit of a different announcement because we're past the middle of the fiscal year. The way this works, the legislature sets a budget when they end the session last year, and they make an estimate based on what they expect tax collections will be. So, as we've talked about some in past shows, we've been trending above that estimate. So the state's been collecting more tax dollars than even they expected. And so this latest number, around $330 million surplus, that's about twice as big as the surplus that was originally expected. So what does that mean? I mean, that's a lot of numbers. So what does it mean if you're just a taxpayer? Well, first of all, it means Arkansas is doing pretty well economically. There's a lot of inputs that feed into this, but higher revenue means the state's economy is growing. It means the state government is collecting more tax dollars than it needs, more than they budgeted for. And so this surplus is effectively money that's sitting there, and the legislature has to make a decision about what they'll do with it. We've had surpluses the last few years, and the legislature has a choice. When you have a surplus, you can either spend more money, create a new government program, or you can give it back to taxpayers, the people who earned it.
Yes.
And so after months and years of surpluses, we believe it's time to give that money back to taxpayers. And so this should be good news in that there is ample money to fund what state government needs and give money back to the people who earned it. It's time for Arkansans to get some more tax relief.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things, and this intrigued me, Jay, one of the things influencing this, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember, on Christmas Eve, an Arkansan from Cabot won the sole winner of the Powerball jackpot, and the annuitized amount was $1,817 million. Or $817 million, so 1.8 almost $1 billion. Now, this person chose to go with the lump sum payment, so it went from it basically cost $1 billion. It went down to $800 million to get the lump sum, ladies and gentlemen. But Jay, $32 million went to the state of Arkansas. That's what the lucky Cabot winner paid in taxes.
It's crazy. I mean, to think that a winning lottery ticket could have really a meaningful impact on the state revenue numbers because of the taxes owed on that.
Yes. And what I found even more intriguing about this, and this is where our conservative legislature and governors, you have to give them some of the kudos on this. Arkansas's top income tax rate for this year is 3.9%. That's down from 7%, which is what it was a year ago. So it would be almost doubling that $32 million. The state would have probably got about $61 million or so, give or take, out of that person if they hadn't lowered the income tax rate.
Well, you're right that absolutely the Governor Sanders and the legislature deserve credit for making progress on reducing our income tax. The governor's come out in favor of eliminating it completely. And it's a great point, to not just to apply to the lottery winner, but more broadly. I mean, if you're living in Arkansas today, you're paying substantially fewer state income taxes than you were 4 years ago.
Yes.
And what this shows us is that we can continue cutting income taxes to get us down to zero, and all the while having more than enough money to fund state government.
Yes. And Jay, we're going to have to pause in a second for a break. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, I had several of you text in, and I know when I get a couple texts in like this that a lot of you are probably wondering the same thing. And the two people that texted in, they asked me about my good friends and sponsors over at PI Roofing and Construction and said they had some damage, they believe, from this ice and snow that we just recently had. And how should we start with the claim and whatever, they've called their insurance agent. And I'm glad you asked. That's the first thing. PI Roofing and Construction actually has a little pamphlet here to tell you what to do in the event of a claim. And that's the first thing they said was report the storm's damage to your insurance and start your claim, and then inform them that PI Roofing and Construction is your preferred contractor. And then they're going to come out and document the process with pictures. And that's why, once again, I recommend those maintenance plans, because that's all going to be on file already, and for your insurance adjuster. So they will even try to be there when your insurance adjuster comes out, and they'll work with the adjuster. And a lot of times, folks, having that project manager out there is such a beneficial thing for you, because number one, PI Roofing and Construction's team is up on all the new building codes and what you need to do. So they will make sure that the adjuster is aware of that, and properly, when you get your claim filed, that all that stuff is documented, so you get the maximum reimbursement from your insurance company. And they will help you through this whole process. So if you've had damage or you need a new roof or any type of construction, I'm telling you, these are the folks to call. So give PI Roofing Construction a call at 501-707-3548. That's 501-707-3548. You can get them also online at piroofing.com. That's piroofing.com. 25 plus years now in business, folks. Alrighty, when we come back from the traffic, I'll have Jay and we'll continue talking about the subjects. And welcome back, everybody, to the Steve Finnegan Show with my good friend Jay Robertson from Opportunity, Arkansas on. And Jay, welcome back. And I have a question that one of the listeners texted in that I wanted to raise, because I'm sure there's others that are asking this, and said, over the last 3 years, Steve, there's probably been close to $1 billion in surplus money. And where has it all gone?
Well, that is a great question. And I think that's right. I don't know about for the past 3 years exactly, but it's definitely close to that. And so basically what's happened, a couple of years ago, we got some income tax cuts from the legislature. State spending has increased over the last few years. So just last year, we saw state spending go up by at least $100 million, likely more than $100 million. It's hard to know exactly, because unfortunately, a lot of the bills that get passed don't actually come with a price tag or a fiscal note. So some of it has gone to grow state government. And another place that some of the money has gone that doesn't get as much coverage is into reserve accounts. So basically a savings account for the state. And we're going to have more to say about this soon, because I think a lot of people don't realize, there's hundreds of billions of dollars, or millions of dollars, in surplus. And the state has over several billion dollars in reserves. And, on one hand, that's a good thing. We want to have a rainy day fund to make sure we can cover emergencies or an economic downturn. But the size of those reserves has grown substantially over the last few years. We're going to be sharing more about that soon. But all that to say, it's those three things. Those are basically the three choices the state has. When we have a surplus, you can spend it, save it, or give it back to taxpayers. And too often, it gets spent and saved, and then taxpayers get a little bit of what's left over, maybe. And so our position at Opportunity Arkansas is taxpayers should come first. I mean, if we're having these record surpluses, the first thing that should happen is that money should go back to taxpayers, at least a portion of it. And so that's why we've put out the Pay As We Grow plan. That's our plan to use this surplus revenue to give taxpayers a pay raise. We've published an online resource on that, payaswegrow.com. It's almost tax filing season. And so I think about this, it's somewhat similar to when you file your taxes as an individual. If you pay too much in taxes over the year, you get a tax refund. Well, if the state government is collecting too much, it's time for taxpayers to get a refund. That means they're taking more tax dollars than needed. And so that's what Pay As We Grow is about. That's why we think it's time to take the next step on income tax cuts.
Absolutely, and I agree with that 100%. Now, I did check, and using Al Gore's amazing internet while you and I were chatting, and there seems to be someone that said there's at least $350 million in surplus, plus this other that we're going to have almost $700 million surplus. And I don't know if that's still sitting in the general fund. I know they have the rainy day fund, like you said, but if we got $700 million in the general fund, that's surplus money, and then you have the rainy day fund, then I think it's time to talk about reducing that income tax rate again.
Absolutely. And, every time that we hear about tax cuts, we hear from our friends on the left and in the traditional media who like to say, well, the sky's going to fall. This is going to bust the budget. We're not going to have enough money to fund state government. You can see the opposite is true. To your point, we've been cutting income taxes. We're collecting more revenue. We're having surpluses. And what it shows is there's more than enough to fund the essential operations, ensure we have a well-funded emergency fund, and give money back to taxpayers.
Yes.
And the other piece is, the states around us, we've got 2 states that don't have an income tax, 2 that are going to zero. The other 2 are also working to go to zero. So, we're hopeful that we'll see action on this soon because we risk falling behind if not.
Yes, and I agree with that. We appreciate the things the state government does. A bulk of this goes to education. But there is one thing I can say as a conservative when it comes to education. I want to make sure we're getting the full and best return on investment on the tax dollars that the people of Arkansas are investing into these schools. And I don't necessarily agree that we're getting that all the time. And that's evidenced by, like you had said on a previous show, 50,000 plus folks are now taking advantage of the program for them to pick the school or homeschool that they want to send their children to.
Absolutely. I mean, education makes up a huge portion of state spending. That's where a lot of our tax dollars go. And, the best form of accountability is to give parents control. And that's what education freedom is all about. We can spend a lot of time talking about how to fix public schools, and there are some things that we'd like to see done there as well. But ultimately, nobody better knows whether their kid is getting educated than the parent does. And yes. What education freedom does is it gives you the power to say, this school's not working. I'm going to a different school. I'm going to another public school. I'm going to a private school. And the education freedom program that we have in Arkansas has been wildly successful. And it's a savings for taxpayers. So things are going well. We're excited to see that continue growing and excited to see income tax cuts hopefully coming soon.
Yes, I am too. Well, Jay, we've come to the end of the segment. I appreciate you as always, and I'll look forward to talking with you next Thursday, brother.
Thank you, Steve. Talk to you then.
All right. God bless. All righty, folks. We're at the top of the hour news. We'll be back after that.